it's me again, yours truly.
Hi, my name is Veronica, aka Vespertilio. I am an Italian full-time artist with works that range from comic books, tarot cards, and teaching. The Q&A is divided by topics. We are going to focus on what I can tell you to help you on your artistic journey and career. I don't want this to be a get-to-know-me video, but more like a chat where I can give you my personal advice as a professional artist to all my fellow artists out there. Whether you are a professional, a beginner, or my cat is crunching, or someone that still has to start, you are already an artist. You can find the complete timeline with the questions in the description or in the first pinned comment. And with that said, let's get started. About art. Would you say there's a way to develop your own unique art style, or that it happens? How did you end up with your drawing style? So the answer is in between. I believe you don't develop your art style, but it develops as you change and grow. I have here my comic books. If you look at how I used to draw in my first graphic novel, and then you look at how I used to draw in my second graphic novel. The first one is from 2018, the second one is from 2021, and then how I draw nowadays, I changed a little. The change happened gradually because even though many times I've been told that I am still recognizable in my art style, I strongly believe that it changes with you because you change, the things you like change, the things that inspire you change, and so does your art style. One tip, one advice I want to give to artists who are struggling with finding their art style is that they have to stop looking for it. Both happens and it develops through your art journey, while you grow, while you experience, while you study, while you practice. But I have another tip, and it links to the next question. Which artists and readings influenced you the most? So, one thing I would recommend is to feed your inspiration. And by that, I simply mean to enjoy what you like and what inspires you and surround yourself with it. Study it, look it, literally enjoy it. One thing that can help you with the development of your art style is actually surround yourself with things that inspire you and feed your artistic expression. For me, for example, for readings, the book that changed the way I express my art is, of course, Dracula by Bram Stoker. Other things that really influenced me are other artists and other pieces of art. And I have many here I want to show you. So, starting strong, it's been 10 years since the first time I looked at his art, and since then it keeps being one of my biggest inspirations art-wise, and this Mr. Edward Gorey. He's great, he's gorgeous. As you can see, his art relies a lot on hatching and on inking, and so you can actually guess why I love him so much. But what I have to give to Edward Gorey is he actually made me obsessed with bats. Today I am obsessed with bats is all thanks to Edward Gorey, because when I was at university for the main project of set design, we had to design sets and costumes for Dracula the musical, and one of the inspirations I stumbled upon was the Dracula done by Edward Gorey in 1970, Tony Award winner. I'll leave it here somewhere because that is absolutely gorgeous. Going even stronger, this book was gifted to me by my sister this Christmas. I really love Gustave Doré. I used to have other books with his illustrations of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, but this is the most complete one basically, and I keep this close to me while I work on my comics, and yeah, it's really great. During my teenage years, they were like big inspiration, Tim Burton and Edward Munch. Also, Mr. Mike Mignola. Here I have Dracula by Mike Mignola. I really love Hellboy, so yeah. As for other male artists that really inspired my style, basically, I can say Félicien Rops, I can say Albert Joseph Benoît, I can say Luis Ricardo Falero. Let's switch to the girls because, like, they were huge on my inspiration. Here are some of them. This is a beautiful book. It's Witchcraft from the Library of Esoterica. It's a wonderful book series, and this book series itself is like one of my biggest inspiration. If I hadn't got the volume on tarot, I probably would have never done my tarot deck. So that's how how grateful I am to this book series. This is the volume on witchcraft, and those books, the peculiarity of these books is that they are not only books on the esoteric basically, but are also actual art books. And so a lot of my favorite artists of the past couple of years, I have discovered them through these books. So for example, we have here gorgeous Bali Myers. Then we have this other gorgeous witch artist, which is Miss Rosalind Norton. I talked about her in my last video. This is the gorgeous Remedios Varo, another witch artist that is Leonora Carrington, and she is a huge inspiration also as a writer. I have already read a book by her, and now I'm reading this one. I'm neglecting a little my readings lately, and I definitely need to finish reading this because it was so fun. So one Italian pride and one of my favorite artists ever is Miss Leonor Fini. I love Leonor Fini so much. She's such an inspiration. I mean, look at this. This is 1948. It looks like Vogue from the 80s, 90s. It's 1948. It's just gorgeous. Her art is gorgeous, and she was often called La Femme Sorcière, the witch woman. So she's gorgeous. She's an Italian artist, and she's my Italian pride. I love her so much. She's just one of my biggest inspiration. Another one, big inspiration, is Miss Margaret Brundage. Margaret Brundage is the queen of pulp covers. This is one of her most famous works, and this is the cover of The Vampire Master for Weird Tales. This work alone by her was such a big inspiration throughout my early 20s. Another book I want to share is this one. This is a catalog for an exhibition that is in Italy about art and magic. In the cover there is La Sorcière by Luis Ricardo Falero, and this book is gorgeous. I actually discovered Felician Rops through this book, and he is one of my biggest inspirations too. So let's move on to other questions now. How does your creative process begin? So there are two ways in which I can begin my creative process. I either have to do it in a very practical and technical way. So I just follow every step I have to take to do my work, and I apply drawing techniques and composition rules, for example. First thing I do is look for references, or if I have to draw a human figure, I usually take pictures of myself to copy the pose, and then I try to sketch out, maybe in little thumbnails first, the composition I want, and I see what composition works best. Then I move to a bigger page, let's say. I develop the right composition for what I want to do, and then I take all my references and all my elements and I arrange them onto page according to the composition. And so it's a very practical and technical way of proceeding. Or I literally picture the image in my mind and I kind of see it, and then I try my best to put it out of my brain and onto paper. And one thing many struggle to understand is that many think that I do this, and so I have this ability of just translating what I have in mind perfectly on paper, while I don't do that. What I do is try to be as close as possible to what I imagine, and thankfully many times I'm pretty happy with that much I can portray. I don't mind not being 100% faithful to what I see in my mind, because I understand that it's very difficult. I'm very lucky to have these images pop out in my mind, and I am pretty satisfied with whatever I put on paper. It's pretty difficult to have it match it 100%. So yeah, those are two ways. There is another way actually. When I feel inspired but I don't see like the pictures in my head, I look for what is inspire me in that moment. So like it can be a painting, it can be pictures I find on Pinterest, and I just use like composition techniques or things like that to arrange them to paper and basically see what happens. How did you learn how to find inspiration, and where do you look for inspiration? I just answered to this question basically. So I look for inspiration on pictures online, surround myself with inspiration with physical things, and I actually think this is kind of an investment on my artistic expression and on my art career. I differentiate investing in my inspiration from splurging. So what I do, I invest in my inspiration, but I choose wisely how and on what to invest. For how I learned to find inspiration, when I was struggling with my mental health and I was going through burnout and had art block, I thought I was no longer like worthy of inspiration. And then by trying to heal myself by just enjoying what I liked and drawing those things, I understood that that was the secret to find inspiration. The fact that it wasn't a difficult, hard way to do it didn't mean it was the wrong way. So for me it was the right way actually, and keeping myself basically blessed with all the things that inspire me and surrounding myself with all these things was the key to learning that inspiration is everywhere and is always all around us. What do you do when you want to learn something new or improve in a field art-wise? So my biggest advice on this is start. And by start, I don't mean like I want to learn how to play guitar, so I book a lesson, or I apply to a music school, or I start looking for tutorials. I mean literally start. I mean pick the guitar and start like strumming randomly. Get to know what you want to invest in, basically. I made you the example with the guitar because it is literally what I did. When I started learning how to play guitar, I play a little, by the way. I play a little guitar and a little ukulele. And when I started learning, what I did is basically I was looking for the Mariachi trilogy by Robert Rodriguez because I was working on my first graphic novel. And I had this guitar always with me because I used it as reference for my graphic novel. And basically, when I was looking at Antonio Banderas like strumming on the guitar, the first thing I did was picking up the guitar and looking at what he was doing and copied. So of course I didn't learn all the thing, but that was something that made me like start. I just started. So if you want to learn something new, jump right into it. Start by making mistakes, basically. Just start by enjoying it. Start experimenting with it. Then start studying it. Start looking for books, for if you want to take classes, if you want to look for tutorials. Learn things in a more like proper way. But the first advice I would give you is just start. Don't wait to have things figured out. First you start, and you start in the worst way possible because you don't know anything, but that is actually the best way possible to start. And then right away, after you had just jumped into it, you can start developing a proper learning scheme to that thing. Now let's move to what I would define more like art tips. What resources do you recommend to get better at inking? As I just said, jump right at it and make your mistakes. But one advice I want to give in particular regarding inking is study from old masters, study from other artists and other pieces of art. For example, while I was making the pages for one of the comics I'm working on this year, I would have always by my side on the table this book with the art of Gustave Doré. So when I was like struggling to understand how to render something properly, I would just go through the pages and find something that looked like what I wanted to do and just see how would it do such things. So for example, one thing I want to show you here, I have the only page I can show you from this this comic I did. While I was doing things like this, I would always have with me this book to see what to do. But as you can see, even though I checked on this book, I don't look like Gustave Doré basically, so I still am myself, but that doesn't mean I can't study from other artists and like learn from them and maybe find things that work and things that I want to do differently. So not only to get better at inking, but also to get better at any technique in art is to just study from other artists, other masters and their art basically. I'm a traditional artist, but I want to learn how to use digital art as well. But I sometimes feel unsure on how to make the transition, how to use digital art to enhance traditional art. The answers are kind of the same in this moment, but start, jump at it, and you have to learn by trial and error. You have to make your mistakes, and of course, you can rely on tutorials. You can look for other artists. You can look for books and just do your thing. I've never waited to be perfect or to know what I was doing to even publish those things on my social media. And I had to go a very long way, especially on digital art. And I still have to learn a lot. Most of all, my biggest advice is don't wait to be ready to do the thing. Do it. Just do it. Make mistakes, but do it. You'll learn on the go. For how to use digital art to enhance traditional art, you have to decide what you mean by enhancing traditional art through digital art, because to me it's just to scan this piece and just adjust the whites and the blacks of the piece. To other people might be something different. You have to learn by yourself what you want. Of course, there are a lot of resources on how to do it, so just look around, it's fine. You'll find your answers. What are your favorite brands for art supplies? So one tip I can give you on choosing art supplies is that, again, you have to try a lot of things. It is another thing that you have to invest on. And of course, as for inspiration, I also don't tend to splurge on these things. I used to. I carefully choose what to invest in. But for this reason, I change brands a lot. And at the moment, the only things I keep sticking to, and I kept sticking to for the past like 2 or even 3 years, are pencils and sketchbooks. For sketchbooks, I'm using Moleskine sketchbooks. These are my favorites by far. The only thing is they are pretty expensive, but I have a tip for you, because lately I've been buying all my new next sketchbooks, Moleskine sketchbooks, thrifted, and I find way cheaper sketchbooks, brand new, still wrapped in plastic. So that is very, very convenient. So if you want to try sketchbooks like this, you either wait for sales. There's another thing I do. For example, this sketchbook right here, at least in Italy, is like 21, 22 euros. And when I've bought a new one, I paid like 14 euros because there were sales. But my new sketchbook that is twice the size of those is currently like for 36 euros. I paid just 20 because I bought it on a thrift shop, so that was great. And the other thing are pencils, and I keep using the HP pencils from Flying Tiger Copenhagen. Yep, to this day. So now let's move to the most important question of this video, and that is actually the question that gave the name to this video. What advice would you give to people that want to transition making art full time? To keep in mind that it is in fact a transition and not a switch. So one thing I want to tell you is that many think that the moment you have like this, your first work published, you are a full-time artist. That is so not true. When this came out, it was 2018 and I was like 24 years old. I still had to finish my university. I had to graduate at the Academy of Fine Arts, and I wasn't a full-time artist because what I did, I made art, but I definitely wasn't able to support myself financially with my art. And it would have taken other 5 years before I was able to do it. Becoming a full-time artist is not something that you can switch to or jump to. It is in fact a transition. And To me personally, it took me 5 years to become full-time, and in the meantime, I published 2 graphic novels, I got a deal for my tarot deck, I worked on other comic books for other publishers, and I started working as a teacher, and I did commissions, and I did Twitch, and yet it took me 5 years. All these things gradually made me transition to being a full-time artist. Don't think that if you do this and it doesn't work, then you have failed, because from your first publication and you becoming actually a full-time artist, it takes a lot of time. It takes time. It took me 5 years. So my biggest advice is this: if you want to transition to full-time artist, keep in mind it's going to be a transition. Keep in mind you might have to do other jobs in the meantime. I would do all these things and also look for regular jobs to support me financially. So yeah, that is my biggest advice. Keep in mind that it is indeed a transition. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope it will be somehow helpful to you. If you have any suggestions or requests for future videos, please feel free to leave them in a comment below. I will see you very soon with more art videos. In the meantime, let's make art. Bye.